Hello. Everyone, welcome back to my channel. I need you to listen closely because what I'm about to say will challenge everything you think you know about women, attraction, and dating. There's a pattern that most men overlook, something subtle yet undeniable. Women, especially in today's world, are increasingly drawn to older men. And it's not just about money, status, or stability, although those play a role. It's deeper than that. It's psychological. It's primal. It taps into a part of female consciousness most men never see. Think about it. Younger men chase women with energy, bravado, and impulsive charm. But women, they're looking for something different. They crave maturity, emotional intelligence, and the kind of calm confidence that only comes from life experience. A younger man might excite, but an older man soothes. He understands fear, loss, and what it takes to protect and provide, not just financially, but emotionally. And let me be blunt. Many women today have grown tired of immature games, endless drama, and the emotional roller coaster that comes with younger men. Older men exude a subtle authority. It's not arrogance, it's self-possession. A woman notices it instantly, even if she doesn't consciously admit it. The way he speaks, the way he moves through the world, the way he holds his decisions without seeking approval. These are signals women pick up on. And there's something else. Security. Not just the financial kind, but psychological. Older men have survived heartbreak, failure, and disappointment. They've learned lessons that younger men are still blind to. That survival, that wisdom, it's magnetic. But here's the part most men miss. This preference isn't always about conscious choice. It's wired into female psychology. Women are biologically and socially tuned to seek partners who can offer stability, wisdom, and a sense of certainty about the future. The age difference amplifies that sense. It's not just attraction, it's reassurance, almost a subconscious insurance policy. Now, I want you to think about your own life. How much of your frustration with dating comes from misunderstanding this dynamic? How much are you chasing the wrong signals while ignoring what women actually respond to? This is the first truth most men never hear, and that's why it hurts when they realize younger energy alone isn't enough to hold a woman's attention. Before we move deeper, I need you to be honest with yourself. Are you chasing her thrill, or are you building yourself into a man who naturally commands respect, trust, and desire? Keep that question in your mind, because it will guide everything we explore next. Let's get real. You might be thinking, but I'm young, ambitious, and confident. Why wouldn't she want me? Confidence alone isn't the full story. Women aren't just drawn to confidence, they're drawn to control, consistency, and the kind of calm power that only comes from lived experience. An older man doesn't need to prove himself every day. He has a track record. He has a life story that says, without words, I've survived, I've learned, and I can handle anything. That is irresistible. Here's a truth most men never want to admit. Youth is loud, energy is flashy, but experience is magnetic. It speaks in silence, in gestures, in subtle decisions that reveal mastery over life itself. Women notice this, even if subconsciously. When she sees a younger man with energy but no direction, she unconsciously compares it to an older man who radiates control. That comparison isn't about money, or the house, or the car. It's about who he is when nothing is at stake, about the man she can rely on when chaos strikes. Now, let me make this painfully clear. Being older isn't magic. Women aren't automatically drawn to a number. They're drawn to the qualities age can bring: wisdom, patience, emotional intelligence, and a deep understanding of human nature. And if a man has those qualities earlier in life, he can leapfrog this dynamic entirely. But most men don't. They're reactive, impulsive, and still figuring out who they are. That's why older men hold the advantage. They've been forged by experience. This isn't about making women chase you. It's about becoming the kind of man women naturally seek. It's about internal growth, not superficial tactics. Emotional stability, life mastery, and the ability to make her feel safe without controlling her. That is the language women respond to. Younger men often misinterpret signals, thinking they need to impress with flashy gestures. The reality is far more subtle. She's watching how you handle yourself in private, how you manage stress, how you respond to disappointment. That is your true currency. Ask yourself, when she looks at you, does she see someone she can rely on when life gets messy? Or does she see a gamble, a risk she has to manage? That distinction is the difference between fleeting attraction and lasting desire. And here's the kicker. Most men ignore this because it's not sexy in a movie trailer. No one shows emotional intelligence or calm authority as glamorous. But in the real world, women notice. They remember. And they choose. Always. Let's talk about trust, because this is where older men pull far ahead and younger men never see it coming. Women crave trust like air. They need to know deep down that the man standing beside them can weather storms without falling apart. Younger men often mistake excitement for attraction. They think energy, flirtation, or social bravado is enough to hold a woman's attention. But women aren't drawn to chaos. They're drawn to certainty. And older men embody certainty because they've lived enough to understand cause and effect, failure and redemption, love and loss. Think about it. Every choice a man has survived shapes him. Every heartbreak, every failure, every victory has taught him how to navigate life without losing himself. That stability is magnetic to women, and it's subtle. It isn't loud. It doesn't scream, "Look at me." It whispers, "I am grounded. You can lean on me." And here's the hard truth. Younger men, even when they try, can rarely replicate that. They have ambition, charm, and drive, but without the wisdom that comes from experience, they're still experimenting with themselves. Women sense that. They feel it in your words, your tone, your decisions, even in silence. A woman will test you emotionally, not because she wants to break you, but because she's assessing, can I trust this man when life isn't easy? Will he crumble under pressure, or will he rise? Older men pass these tests naturally because life has already tested them in ways women cannot. That's why a conversation with a younger man may feel thrilling for a moment, but with an older man, it feels safe, familiar, and undeniably magnetic. And here's something many men never consider: the subconscious equation women run in their minds. They're evaluating long-term security, emotional maturity, and consistency, all in moments you don't notice. A younger man can excite her body, but an older man captivates her mind. Her desire shifts from novelty to reliability, from sparks to deep, enduring fire. That's the difference between being liked and being truly sought after. So ask yourself, when you're interacting with women, are you projecting stability and mastery, or just youth and energy? Because that distinction determines whether she sees you as a temporary thrill or a lasting presence in her life. The more you understand this, the more you control the dating dynamic without ever trying to trick anyone. Now, let's talk about communication, because this is where most younger men fail and older men excel without even trying. Women aren't just listening to your words, they're reading the rhythm, the confidence, the intent behind them. An older man speaks with clarity because he knows what matters and what doesn't. There's no need to over-explain, to impress, or to prove himself. That simplicity is intoxicating. Younger men often fill silence with chatter, jokes, or exaggerated stories. They try too hard to capture attention, thinking energy equals attraction. But women feel it when someone is trying to force connection. They instinctively detect insecurity disguised as charm. Older men, on the other hand, don't need to manufacture attention. Their words carry weight because their lives have given them authority, not because they demand it. And here's a psychological truth most men never realize. Women are drawn to calmness, not excitement, when it comes to emotional intimacy. Excitement sparks chemistry, yes, but calm presence builds desire. A woman notices when a man can navigate disagreement without defensiveness, when he can hold his ground while remaining compassionate, when he can express his needs without demanding hers. That balance is incredibly rare, and it's usually found in men who have lived enough to understand themselves. Older men also understand timing in conversation. They know when to speak, when to listen, and when to let silence do the work. That silence, it's magnetic. It allows a woman to project, to feel curiosity, to lean in emotionally. Younger men often panic in these moments, filling them with meaningless words or forced humor. Older men use silence strategically, and women respond unconsciously, feeling drawn to the man who doesn't need to control every moment. Let's break it down. Attraction isn't about what you say, it's about how you make her feel. Younger men excite her adrenaline. Older men reassure her subconscious. Excitement fades. Reassurance builds desire over time. That's why older men consistently win when it comes to deep, meaningful connection. Women aren't just chasing novelty, they're chasing mastery of self and life. So reflect. In your conversations, are you building fleeting thrill, or are you creating magnetic authority that pulls her naturally toward you? Understanding this subtle difference is crucial. This is how older men communicate without seeming desperate, and why younger men struggle to hold attention despite their effort, charm, or looks. Let's dive into emotional intelligence, because this is the hidden currency that older men wield effortlessly, and younger men often underestimate. Women are deeply attuned to emotional stability. They don't just want a man who can provide excitement or pleasure. They want someone who can regulate his own emotions, someone who can handle life's unpredictability without losing control. Emotional mastery isn't learned in a weekend seminar. It's forged through experience, failure, and self-reflection. Think about it. How many younger men react impulsively to conflict, jealousy, or criticism? Their emotions are raw, unfiltered, and often overwhelming. Women feel this instability on a visceral level, even when the man seems confident externally. An older man, by contrast, has weathered storms. He's been rejected, disappointed, and tested by life, and he's learned to respond, not react. That calm presence is magnetic. It tells a woman, without words, I will remain steady when everything around us shakes. This isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about mastery. Women crave depth, empathy, and emotional understanding. They can sense when a man sees beyond the surface, when he recognizes her fears, her needs, and her patterns without judgment. Younger men often miss these subtle cues, either because they're too self-focused or too impatient. Older men intuitively read the emotional landscape and respond in a way that fosters trust, safety, and desire. Here's a psychological insight most men never grasp. Women evaluate potential partners not just on what they can do for them, but on how they make them feel emotionally. Stability creates attraction. Chaos diminishes it. That's why an older man's patience, his ability to stay grounded during conflict, and his empathy make him far more appealing in the long run than a younger man's temporary thrill. So here's the reality. Emotional intelligence isn't optional if you want to attract and hold women. It's non-negotiable. Younger men often confuse charm for emotional competence, failing to realize that women respond more strongly to depth than to flashiness. Emotional mastery isn't sexy in the movies, but in life, it's irresistible. Ask yourself, when she's vulnerable, when she's upset, when life feels uncertain, do you provide stability or chaos? That's the question that determines whether she sees you as a temporary fling or a man she can rely on for life. Understanding this is not just insight, it's power. Now we need to talk about experience, because this is where the invisible advantage of older men becomes undeniable. Experience isn't just about age, It's about lessons learned, battles fought, and wisdom earned. Women unconsciously recognize it, even if they don't articulate it. They feel it in how a man navigates life, in the ease of his decisions, in the confidence that comes from surviving challenges most younger men haven't faced. Consider this: every rejection, failure, heartbreak, or success shapes a man's approach to relationships. Younger men are still experimenting. They don't yet understand their own patterns, their triggers, or their limits. Women sense this lack of self-mastery immediately. It's like an invisible signal that screams unpredictability. Older men, by contrast, exude a quiet authority born of lived experience. That authority reassures women, attracting them in ways superficial charm never could. It's not just about handling stress or making smart choices. Experience gives men perspective on women's needs, emotional cues, and desires. It allows older men to see the underlying motivations, the unspoken dynamics, and the subtle tests women throw without noticing. Younger men often interpret these tests as challenges to ego or power, but older men see them as opportunities to respond with wisdom and patience. That difference is magnetic. And here's something crucial. Women are wired to seek stability and foresight in a mate. They want someone who has learned from mistakes, someone who has refined his judgment over time. That's why older men, even if not traditionally handsome or flashy, often command more attention and deeper connection. Their presence communicates reliability, competence, and life mastery, all traits that women evaluate unconsciously before even speaking a word. So here's the takeaway. Women are not choosing older men for numbers on a birth certificate. They're choosing the qualities that come with experience: calm, stability, emotional intelligence, and life mastery. Younger men can cultivate these traits, but it takes deliberate effort, reflection, and growth. Until then, women will naturally gravitate toward those who already possess them. Ask yourself, are you building your life in a way that communicates mastery and reliability, or are you still chasing superficial metrics of attraction? Because the women you want aren't just chasing your looks or energy. They're chasing the man you are becoming through your experiences. That is the ultimate differentiator. Now let's focus on presence, the invisible magnetism that older men naturally radiate, and younger men often fail to notice. Presence isn't about loud confidence or flashy gestures. It's about how a man occupies space, how he interacts with the world, and how he carries himself without needing validation. Women notice it immediately, even if they can't explain why. It's the unspoken signal that says, I am complete, I am grounded, you can trust me. Older men exude this presence because they've been tested by life. They've faced rejection, loss, and failure, and survived. That survival breeds a quiet certainty that younger men lack. Even in silence, an older man communicates strength, stability, and composure. Women pick up on micro-expressions, subtle gestures, and vocal tonality. They sense who can handle pressure, who can navigate chaos, and who can provide emotional and psychological safety. That's magnetic. Younger men often try to mimic this by showing off, talking louder, or overcompensating with humor. But presence can't be faked. It comes from experience, emotional intelligence, and self-assurance. When a man moves through life with calm authority, women feel drawn to him instinctively. They feel relief in his presence and subconsciously recognize him as someone capable of providing not just protection, but guidance, stability, and deep connection. Here's a key insight. Women are not just attracted to men. They are attracted to the way men make them feel. Presence amplifies desire because it creates a sense of safety, curiosity, and respect all at once. An older man doesn't need to chase her attention. She naturally leans in, drawn to his grounded energy, his self-possession, and his ability to command a room without speaking. And the beauty of this is subtlety. Small actions, a steady gaze, calm movement, measured speech, create an aura that can't be purchased, learned overnight, or mimicked superficially. Women sense it instantly. Younger men may rely on charm or fleeting excitement, but older men build attraction through layered presence that grows stronger over time. Ask yourself, when you enter a room, do you radiate calm authority, or are you still seeking approval? Presence is your most powerful asset, and cultivating it is what shifts attraction from fleeting interest to lasting desire. Women respond to it unconsciously, but it shapes their decisions more than any words, looks, or status symbols ever could. Now let's bring everything together, because this is where most men fail to see the full picture. Women don't just prefer older men because of money, status, or age. They prefer them because of the qualities age often cultivates: emotional intelligence, life experience, stability, and presence. These traits create attraction that is deep, lasting, and often subconscious. And here's the truth most men never hear. You can cultivate these qualities at any age, but you must commit to deliberate growth. It's not about pretending to be older or trying to fake authority. It's about internal transformation, building emotional resilience, mastering communication, developing presence, and learning from life experiences. These are the cornerstones of magnetic attraction. Women are wired to notice these qualities, whether they say it or not, and they are drawn to them in ways that can't be measured by superficial metrics. Think about your interactions with women. Are you projecting energy, charm, or impulsive confidence? Or are you creating security, curiosity, and depth? Most men focus on the first and neglect the second, but women instinctively respond to the second. They seek the man who has survived, learned, and grown, a man whose very presence communicates reliability, understanding, and quiet power. That is the kind of attraction that endures, that builds desire beyond physical appearances or fleeting excitement. Here's the final insight. Older men understand the unspoken rules of female psychology because they've lived long enough to see patterns, mistakes, and outcomes. Younger men can catch up, but only by consciously developing the same qualities: emotional mastery, life experience, calm presence, and strategic communication. That is how you become irresistible, not by chasing attention, but by becoming a man women naturally gravitate toward. Now here's something for you to think about, your personal equation. Ask yourself, if my age, my experience, and my emotional growth were variables in a woman's attraction to me, how much of each do I actually bring to the table? Think about that, calculate it, and drop your answer in the comments. I want to see who's ready to evolve. If this insight hit you, don't just keep it to yourself. Like this video, subscribe for more truths women don't openly tell men, and share it with a friend who needs to hear this. The difference between attraction and fleeting attention starts with the man you are becoming and the choices you make today.